Because when people in China are told to do something, even if that thing doesn't make sense, they don't care. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to get into trouble. So even if they know it's stupid and it doesn't make sense, they are going to follow through with it no matter what. I've lived in Taiwan for quite a long time now, and I've also spent some time in China. I also know quite a few people who are either currently living in China or who have recently left China for various reasons. As I'm sure you know, there are many differences between Taiwan and China, and in this video I would like to talk about a very important difference between these two countries and why I'm so thankful that I currently live in Taiwan and not China. Hey everybody, my name's Nathan and welcome to the channel. For a start, China is using COVID as an excuse to exert even more unnecessary control over the lives of its citizens. But even though Taiwan has been seeing a relatively sharp increase in the number of confirmed cases over the past few months, Taiwan is dealing with it in pretty much the opposite way compared to China. And this is a very important distinction and something that I really want to delve deeper into in this particular video. This means that in Taiwan, people have rights. People enjoy freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of movement, press freedom, freedom of assembly, and much more. Generally speaking, the government in Taiwan does not currently infringe on the rights of its citizens. Is Taiwan perfect? Of course not. It definitely has its problems like all countries around the world do. However, in my opinion, as a foreigner, living in Taiwan and as someone who has been and spent time in China, Taiwan is definitely a better place and a more suitable place, I think, for many foreigners. Taiwan is not over-policing or implementing unreasonable, ineffective, and often overly strict measures and guidelines, which unnecessarily restrict its citizens or infringe on their rights. If we look at China's zero-COVID policy, it has been a complete failure in so many ways. But the worst thing about this zero-COVID policy is how China has actually treated its own citizens. Taiwan has shown not only China, but the rest of the non-democratic authoritarian countries, that it is very possible to deal with COVID in a way that does not restrict or exert unnecessary control over the population. Of course, steps need to be taken to minimize the impact of COVID and to combat its spread, but where do you draw the line? Besides safety, which I've talked about previously, this particular aspect of how the governments treat their citizens in China and in Taiwan is a very, very crucial difference, I think, and a very important difference between the country of Taiwan and China. Besides gating people in their communities and neighborhoods, welding their doors and windows shut, which has caused people to starve, commit suicide, as well as forcefully keeping people isolated and separating families, China has more recently implemented a color code system in order to exert more control and restrict the little freedom that they have left. This color code system uses vast amounts of personal data to regulate the lives of people in China. Another problem with this system is that a lot of it is automated and it uses AI. So often it's not really people making the decision as to what color code category you should be put into. This is not something which will happen in Taiwan. The privacy of people in Taiwan is generally respected, and there are limitations to how much data and what kind of data the government in Taiwan can legally collect. This color code system tells them in real time if they have to be quarantined, where they can or cannot go, who poses a COVID risk, etc. And it has already been used in over 200 cities in China. There are three colors with this system. You have red, yellow, and green. Green means you can move around freely. Yellow means you have to be quarantined or isolated for 1 week, and red means you have to be quarantined or isolated for up to 2 weeks. However, there is a huge lack of accessible information, and the public has very little idea exactly how and why they are being put into a specific color category. For example, if I've been put into the yellow category in order to isolate, I wouldn't be able to find out exactly why I have been put into this category. This means that it can be used to manipulate and dictate the lives of people without ever having to really tell them why or how to even avoid it. It seems intentionally ambiguous, in my opinion. The next problem is that this system tends to contradict itself. It hasn't been thought through properly, and there is very little room for any sort of flexibility. Because when people in China are told to do something, even if that thing doesn't make sense, they don't care. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to get into trouble. So even if they know it's stupid and it doesn't make sense, they are going to follow through with it no matter what. And this has led to quite a few sort of very unreasonable situations. The contradiction of some of these rules has led to situations like this. This lady was prevented from taking her father to pick up his medication because her color code restricts her from entering the area in which the medication for her father is. However, she has already gotten permission from her community because she has already tested negative. Another big problem is that not too long ago, the CCP mentioned that the zero COVID policy, or at least elements of their zero COVID policy, will be continued for at least the next 5 years. I really feel sorry for pretty much anybody who's living in China right now. But especially if you're an expat in China and you have the option of living in another country, why on earth would you still choose to live in China? And every time I watch the news and get news of what's going on in China, it just makes me really, really thankful that I ended up choosing to live in Taiwan. Now, I'm not gloating, I'm just saying, like, if I had stayed in China, my life would be very, very different to what it is now. I grew up in South Africa and I had a very free childhood. I don't like to be unnecessarily restricted. I don't think anyone does, for that matter. That's why I'm so thankful to be living in Taiwan, because people still enjoy basic human rights and freedoms here that many people, or most people in China, do not and will not experience for the foreseeable future. Many banks in China have started limiting the amount of money that can be withdrawn, and there are reports of banks freezing accounts without warning. This has caused many people to start losing faith in the ability of those banks to provide essential financial services. In Henan, for example, one of the banks froze the accounts of 400,000 depositors, which meant that around 40 billion yuan worth of deposits could not be withdrawn. The Agricultural Bank of China, which is China's fourth largest bank, also, and without warning, limited withdrawals to 1,000 yuan per day per person. When people complained, they simply just switched their color codes, which forced them to go into quarantine. Something like this is highly unlikely to happen in Taiwan, and if it ever did happen in Taiwan, it would definitely not be for the above-mentioned reasons. Many people who fall into a specific color-coded category have been randomly restricted from public spaces like shopping malls, movie theaters, etc., and are not being told why. There is no explanation beyond the automated color they are assigned. Even if it's a life and death situation, the answer is no. And this is obviously a huge problem. People are so inflexible and they just follow orders like pretty much like robots often. You know, they are scared that if they don't follow the orders, they're going to get into trouble. So even though I think they know that the rule doesn't make sense, they also know that if they don't do exactly what they're told, they are going to get into trouble. So this is something that just won't happen in Taiwan. People think for themselves, for the most part. I really do hope that things can improve for the people of China and that their lives will not be so heavily restricted, and also that they can just enjoy some simple freedoms that many people in Taiwan already can enjoy, and often I think take for granted, including myself. Okay everybody, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
如果你也想成为下一位爆红创作者，请打开下方资讯栏连结，一起来投稿吧。